Hello and welcome to another edition of Coach's Corner. And I am extremely excited about today's opportunity to talk to not only a friend from the Southeast, from Louisiana, or the Boot, as it's affectionately called, but it's one of the premier elite strength coaches in the country, former LSU strength coach, the head of the strength coaching program, Tommy Moffitt. And Coach Tommy, I want to say thank you first and foremost for taking the time, because I know you're a busy man, but thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you very much, Walter. I appreciate it. It's my pleasure to come on here today and talk about training, talk about my passion, and our new program that we have developed. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
So the first thing is Coach Tommy is a family man, 3 sons, all of which went to LSU. His wife Jill. We're talking about elite athletes, all having played football at Catholic and Baton Rouge, playing baseball, and now as college student athletes, 2 have graduated, Clay and Aaron, and now you have Brady there as a freshman. So this is a coach and a father. We're not just talking about all coach. We're talking about as a parent, but more importantly, today we're going to talk strength. So one of the hot discussion points, Coach, that I'd like to address right out of the gate is, at what age should you as a parent begin to look into strength training for your young student athlete?
Great question, and I'm glad you asked it. And I'm going to start with making this point, especially because, we're talking baseball now. If I were a parent and my son asked me, Dad, can I play baseball? I wouldn't wait until he started puberty to allow him to play the sport. And whether it's baseball, basketball, track and field, football, you name it, no one waits until their child reaches puberty. If I'm a gymnast, to start doing front and back handsprings, you want to start young men, young women at an early age and focus on technique development and not pushing the envelope. And so with our program, now we have in our program, the Moffett Method, we have young men and young women as young as 9 and 10 years old who are performing body weight exercises, technique drills for sprinting and jumping and such. Weightlifting should begin somewhere around 12 years old. There was a study that was done in Europe in the early 2000s, and they published the data. There were over 10,000 young men and young women who went through this study. And the results they measured in the amount of weight gained and the height gained in centimeters, and it was called the Kettle study. And they showed a rapid increase, and it was exponential from the age of 13 until about 18 years of age before it plateaued. And as a college coach, this is why I was so intrigued. From the age of 18 to 21, which was the amount of time that we had them, the amount of growth that was left in that young man or young woman's life was minimal compared to the amount of growth that took place between 13 and 18 years of age. So you want to begin at least by the age of 12 and focus on that technique and really make sure that they perform the exercises with light weights. The goal has nothing to do with strength or power development. But what you want to do is create an atmosphere where that young man or that young lady develops an appreciation and a love for training, and they enjoy it. They have fun while working on that technique. So when that growth spurt starts taking place, now they're able to start putting a little bit of weight on the bar, and then they can see the fruits of their labor, and they gradually get strong so that they're ahead. So when they reach that plateau, between 18 and 21 years old, depending on what their genetics are, that they are going to be better, because what we preach at our company is when you raise the floor, you raise the ceiling. So
Amen.
the sooner you start training, the higher your ceiling is going to be when you hit that plateau between 18 and 21 years old. So it's somewhere around the 12 to 13-year-old age, depending on how mature they are, emotionally, and whether or not they enjoy it, because it's not something that you want to do where you have to force them to do it. And it's important that you have a great atmosphere. And I'll tell you a story to make a point. So Clay and Aaron, and I don't remember how old they were. Clay was probably 9, maybe 10, and Aaron was probably 5 or 6. And I went to Academy and I bought these little bitty dumbbells, and I bought this like a little barbell that you could put some light weights on and off. And I bought them, and the 2 boys were outside in the yard playing. And I went in Clay's bedroom and I just stuck them under the bed. And Jill says, "Tommy, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I went and bought them some toys today at Academy." And she goes, "Those aren't toys, those are barbells." And I said, "I know." And she goes, "I don't want them to start lifting. They're too young." And I said, "Honey, I want them to play with these weights. And I'm just going to put them under the bed, and they'll find them at some point." And because I wanted them to grow up where they played with weights and it was something that they got to do versus something that they had to do. And they still lift today. I mean, this weekend, they were both, Clay and Aaron and Brady, all 3 were in the garage. Clay and Aaron had come over and Brady was here, and they were all working out in the garage. It was a proud dad moment to have your 3 sons back in the garage training with the old weights and barbells. So to answer your question, the sooner you start them, the better.
Well, I think that's an integral part. And again, I want to emphasize, Coach Tommy, spent a lot of time at LSU as their strength coach for athletics, not just football. Dealt with some elite athletes, baseball, track and field, basketball, etc. And it's the Moffett Method.fit. And I'm going to have all that information down below, how you can reach out to Coach Tommy, how you can learn a little bit about the program. My next follow-up question to this, I get a lot of parents that ask me about supplements, protein, creatine, vitamins, multivitamins. Can you shed a little light on not only the supplementation for younger student athletes, but the nutrition, the caloric intake that is suggested or is needed in order for your body to grow?
Yes, sir. Really good, because a lot of people think that you get stronger and faster and in better condition while you train, but you don't. You get stronger and faster and bigger and more powerful when you recover from that work, not while you train. So the best supplement that there's a couple of supplements that are really and really important. And without that, it doesn't matter what you take, it's not going to matter. And the number one thing is sleep. There is a direct correlation in the length and quality of your sleep and your rate of injuries. If you're someone that doesn't sleep or burns the candle from both ends or stays up and plays video games, you're going to be injured more often than people who get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And that's been proven over and over and over again with white papers all throughout high school, college, and in the NFL. And a lot of programs have apps now where, in fact, we have a questionnaire in the Moffett Method program where you can actually fill out a form that talks about the quality of your sleep the night before, the amount of water that you drank, et cetera. So number one, the best supplement that you can take for athletic performance is sleep. It's also as a parent, and my kids went to Catholic high, it's tough academically, and my kids, had to study. And I would come up here and tell them, put the books down. It's time to go to bed. But Dad, I've got this work I got to do. Well, set your alarm. And Aaron was very good about that. Aaron would come home from practice, eat dinner, lay down and go to sleep. And he'd set his alarm, and he would get up in the morning to do his homework, because he knew that he had to have sleep. So sleep is the second one. I mean, sleep is the first one, and then food is the next. And there isn't anything that you can purchase over the counter that is better than chicken, fish, pork, beef, vegetables, fruit, and your starches. Fast food is not real food. It's important that kids get up every morning and eat a breakfast that is high in protein, and not cereal. Cereal is not real food. If you look at the label on a cereal box, it's got words on it that I can't pronounce. Whereas an egg, it is it's the best possible food that you can eat. And young men and young women with their activity levels, they don't have to worry about cholesterol or anything like that. So it's important that kids get up in a timely manner. If they stay up late playing video games or talking on the phone or texting, then they're not going to have time. They're going to want to lay in bed and sleep late. And then they're going to get up and, grab a Nutri-Grain bar or a bowl of cereal and not eat well. So they've got to get up and eat a good breakfast. They need, at a minimum of 2 to 3 eggs, a young man, depending on how much. In fact, I saw Paul Skeens, the great LSU pitcher, first round draft pick, first player picked in the draft. I saw him at the grocery store yesterday, and he had 3 cartons of 18 eggs that he was buying. And he said, Coach, first thing I do every morning is get up and eat eggs. And that reminds me of another point I want to make here in a minute, but you've got to get up and eat breakfast, eat eggs, eat some fruit, drink a lot of water. That is very important. And then make sure that you're going to have a good lunch available. If mom wants to do something, or dad, or a young man. I know a lot of young men, when I was a high school coach at John Curtis, they would make their own peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to snack on throughout the day versus eating a fried chicken patty or something in the cafeteria. And then they've got to eat dinner. Dinner has to be the most nutritious meal of the day. Most kids, in the age group that we're talking about, has some form of practice or training session in the afternoon after school. So if I eat lunch at noon and then I don't eat lunch until after 6 p.m., that's 6 hours that you've missed out on food. And, a young man should have something to eat at least every 4 to 5 hours. It's mandatory if they expect to grow and become strong and healthy. So those are the first and most important things. To supplement means in addition to. So any product that I consume must be taken in addition to sleep, food, and water. So I wanted to set that stage first. Now, of all of the nutritional supplements out there, creatine monohydrate is the most researched nutritional product known to man. There are countless white papers, I mean, a multitude of white papers that have been written by every sports nutritional scientist and university in the world. And really, the only real side effect of taking creatine monohydrate is weight gain. And it's generally in the form of muscle tissue growth. Now, there's right ways and wrong ways to take it. And then, unfortunately, a lot of supplement vendors will sell products that have things that they add to the creatine that could be dangerous. for you. But creatine monohydrate has nothing to do with your endocrine system. It has nothing, it's not going to affect any sex hormones in the body. And research has shown that it actually increases cognitive abilities, acuity, mental acuity. It's great as a post-concussive therapy. A lot of college football teams and professional teams are now using creatine prophylactically just in case an athlete has a subconcussive blow or a concussive blow to the head, and then it becomes a major part of the concussion protocols for these collegiate and professional teams. So there are more benefits, and they know this now through research. There are more benefits for creatine monohydrate than strength and weight gain. And now let's talk about the chemistry. So creatine monohydrate is used when the body produces energy within the mitochondria of the muscle cell. And every time that you contract the muscle, ATP, it's called the ATP/PC system. That is the first fuel that your body uses in a muscle contraction. So ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. The PC at the end stands for phosphocreatine. So what creatine does is it allows the muscle to contract. And so we all know when we sprint and when we lift weights, and especially for pitchers, every time they throw the ball, it's a violent muscle contraction, and creatine or phosphocreatine is the primary energy source for that muscle contraction to throw a baseball, because you throw the baseball and then, we all know that there's a pitch clock now. And that during that time between when I deliver the pitch until I get it, go through my routine, start my windup and throw the pitch again, if I have phosphocreatine stored within my muscular system, then I'm going to recover quicker than someone who doesn't have enough phosphocreatine. And it's readily available. It's all natural. It's in red meats that we eat. So if I'm a vegetarian, I get less phosphocreatine or creatine phosphate through my diet. But to get the amount of creatine that you get in 1 teaspoon, you would have to eat 4 pounds of red meat. So that's kind of the academic side of creatine monohydrate. Athletically speaking, the only reason we prescribe creatine was so that our guys could sprint longer, sprint faster, lift longer, and lift heavier, and then compete at a higher level in competition, because it is an energy metabolite, and that's all it does. And I want to reiterate, it has nothing to do with your endocrine system or your hormones. It's not a sex hormone. It doesn't cause any abnormalities within the hormone system. And as long as you use it as recommended, there's no negative side effects. In fact, people who take more than the recommended serving, they have expensive urine because you're going to urinate it out. And
Right.
so studies have been done. If you take 1 teaspoon per day, which that's about 5 grams of creatine. And what I normally do when I recommend it to someone, I tell them to take a half a teaspoon a day for a week. And then after that, take 1 teaspoon for 2 weeks. So that I've been on it now for 3 weeks. And then the 4th week, take that week off and then start back again with 1 teaspoon for per day for 3 weeks, and then take a week off. And so what the research has shown, that as I take the supplement, the free creatine that's in my bloodstream is at a level where it would be, and then after you take a week off, it diminishes a little bit. And then when I start back on it, and the only reason I tell them to take a week off is because your blood levels are at a height where you don't need to take it.
Right.
So you're just having expensive urine all over again. But I highly recommend that for every competitive athlete. And it's good for, there's been promise shown that it's good for Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's disease. It's good for because my heart is a muscle. Every time your heart beats, it requires creatine phosphate. So it has many, many, many benefits for people other than just athletes. So that's one. And then after that, protein powders are not a bad option. Again, you have to be careful. You want to make sure you buy from a reputable company. You just don't go out and find the cheapest protein powder that you can find. But if a young man or a young woman isn't getting in, and most people recommend between 1 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. So a 200-pound man would have to have at least 100 grams of protein per day. And so when you start looking at the grams of protein that are in an egg or an 8-ounce chicken breast or et cetera, you realize how much protein you actually need. And I find it tough for myself to get the recommended amounts of protein that I want. So I take a protein powder once or twice a day, depends on what my work level is. I usually take about 25 to 30 grams of protein in a protein shake. And I just take vanilla protein, mix it up with a little blender, a little hand blender, so it's easy to clean, or I shake it in a bottle. I don't add any type of fruit or anything like that because that just increases the sugar content of it. And my goal isn't weight gain. I just want to take the protein, to keep from losing my muscle mass that I worked so hard for so many years to gain. So that's good. And then there's an assortment of vitamins and other products, vitamins and minerals and stuff like that are good for you. But, you can just get that in a 1-a-day vitamin. And other than that, I don't recommend anything else except for creatine, a little bit of protein powder when needed, if you're not getting enough through your diet, which most young men and young women do not get, especially if they don't start their day with a high protein meal and eat something with protein in it at lunch. And then a multivitamin, and that's really all you need.
Well, I'm so glad that you were able to, dispense that type of information, because parents are out here looking for the magic powder, the magic supplement, and it's good to know that they don't exist, because that's
right.
Really, it gives peace of mind to parents. One of the words that you've used repeatedly here is sprinting. And I
Yes, sir.
have a big discussion with parents. Of course, my boys, one of which played at LSU Eunice, the other at Vanderbilt. And, they were pitchers, and they did a lot of sprinting. And when I say that to parents, oh, he's got to go long distance running. Can you just share the athletic benefit and the rationale behind it for adding sprint work into your strength program?
Yes, sir. Great question. So I want to start by saying this, and I'm borrowing this. This comes from Russian sports scientist that was probably the most influential person in the world when it comes to sports performance. His name is Yuri Verkhoshansky. And Dr. Verkhoshansky stated years and years and years ago that speed is the limiting factor in all athletic endeavors. It is the most important thing any athlete, regardless of sport, has. And as a strength coach, there is nothing that you can do that is more dynamic and more beneficial to the central nervous system than sprint. And one of the commonalities, because whenever I would meet a strong man and when I say strong man, like a power lifter or power lifter, weightlifter, or someone that competed in the Highland Games, a professional athlete, great collegiate athletes, I would always ask them. Another example is Laird Hamilton. Laird Hamilton is considered by many to be the greatest surfer of all time. He's the guy that married Gabrielle Reese, the
Right.
model, number one, and the great volleyball player. But all of these people have one thing in common, and that was either they had a coach or a parent that had them sprint when they were young, not jog, not lift weights, but just sprint. Gary Frank is he's not a Louisiana native. He's actually from Wisconsin, played football at Mississippi State, set the record at the NFL Combine for an offensive lineman. He was also a shot putter, a national champion shot putter, made the U.S. Olympic team for the shot put, but he couldn't compete because he was considered an amateur athlete. And he went to the NFL Combine, had a professional agent. So back then, the USA Track and Field Federation wouldn't let him compete in the Olympics because he hadn't signed an NFL contract, but he was negotiating, with an NFL agent. But anyway, Gary Frank played 9 or 10 years in the NFL. Good friend of mine. He was the first person to ever total 3,000 pounds in powerlifting, first person to squat 1,000 pounds in powerlifting. And I asked him one day, we were talking, I said, Gary, where did all of this come from? And he said, Coach, I've asked myself that 1,000 times because I when I got to college, I was stronger than everybody. And he said, it all started with my dad making me run 20 and 30 yard sprints and plyometrics. He said, I didn't start lifting weights until I was about 14 or 15 years old when I got to high school. But prior to that, my dad would make me sprint in the yard. And then I would do plyometrics. We had boxes and he would make me jump over these things, because they lived out in the country in Wisconsin. He was a farmer. And he swears that is the reason. So there's so much that goes on the cellular level, and I'm talking down to the neuromuscular, where the nerve actually touches the synapse between the nerve and the individual muscle fibers. And it's been proven that you can't do anything in athletics that is more dynamic and more explosive than sprinting and then jumping. And so that is a part of our developmental program. We start with body weights, and then we progress to dumbbells and kettlebells because we want to strengthen the muscles enough around the joints, because unfortunately, a lot of young children's lives now are sedentary. They stay inside. They play video games. They're not outside climbing trees and jumping out of trees and doing all of that stuff. So we do a little bit of body weight exercises, dumbbell, kettlebell exercises, and then we start with plyos, which is jumping, and sprinting. And we take them through that phase. So that's our second phase. So first phase is body weight, dumbbells, and kettlebells. Second phase is plyos and sprinting. And then we add barbells after that. That is the last thing that we add to their program. And it carries over into the energy system or the vegetative part of the body, because, pitching is a very, we all know that arm speed and, of course, my technique is important, but I can't generate those forces that are required to throw the baseball without having a dynamic lower body, a strong core, my torso, and I left out medicine ball throws because they're very dynamic too. But none of that is possible of throwing, above 90 miles an hour unless you're explosive, dynamic, and fast. So sprinting is of the utmost importance, not only to be dynamic, but then to develop the energy system that is required to repeatedly throw that 90 plus mile per hour fastball over and over again for 7 or 9 innings, depending on how far you go up the ladder.
You know, the last component to this that I want to kind of get into our conversation before we discuss the Moffett method is stretching. You know,
Yes.
I think a lot of parents and student athletes, you know, I always tell parents, when my boys were little boys, we did a lot of sprinting, by the way, but my boys would stretch before they went to bed and when they woke up. And when I say stretch,
Right.
it wasn't anything, you know, they created their own stretching, whether it was touching toes on the floor, how high they could reach on the wall, stretching their legs. Can you talk about just the importance of stretching with regard to being a young person and then ultimately a young student athlete?
Yes, sir. So a lot of that again goes back to movement, and what the young men and young women do during the formative years. And we've all seen, you know, little children when they first learn to walk, they can all squat down in the floor, heels on the ground, back flat, head and eyes up, and sit in that position for, 10 minutes. But then it's, in fact, from the time you are born until you reach this, the 60-year-old mark where I'm at today, you're getting stiffer and stiffer by the day. And I can remember how flexible I was because I was a big wrestler when I was in high school. And the more flexible you are while you wrestle, the better you are of getting out of compromising positions, right before, like if you get thrown onto your back, if you're real flexible, it's a lot easier to get out of that or a headlock or something versus someone that is stiff. And so I can remember how flexible I was when I was young and how stiff I am today. And so flexibility is very important, especially in a sport like baseball, where and there's this, in fact, Tom House, we all know who Coach Tom House is. He has a term he calls disassociation. So, hamstring flexibility, quad flexibility, shoulder flexibility, all of lower back flexibility, all of those things are very important. But you also have to have torso mobility because in baseball, you're swinging a bat and you're pitching, catchers are throwing, your shortstop is fielding ground balls and whipping his shoulders around to throw the baseball. So it's important. And Coach House used to talk about this a lot. So I'm going to make a fist. Let's say this is my lower body from the hips down, and the palm of my hand is my upper body. You have to be able to disassociate the lower body, the lower torso from the upper torso, and be able to turn in opposing directions in order to be effective, especially in a sport like baseball where rotation is so important. So you've not only got to focus on lower body flexibility, my calves, my hams, my quads, my shoulders, my upper back, my arms, not only, and my neck flexibility. I got a point I want to make there in a second also, but you've got to be able to have great torso mobility so that you can rotate freely. And something that the great coach, Nick Saban, and I'm from Louisiana, and I can say it, I work for the man. He's one of the greatest coaches of all time. He used to talk about flexibility. It didn't matter how fast you were or how strong you were. If you didn't have mobility, and he called it fluidity, if you were not a fluid athlete and moved graciously on the field, or if he had a choice between recruiting someone that was fluid versus someone that was stiff, he was always going to take the guy that had more flexibility. And that was something that was very important to him. And so flexibility is something that you got to work on. And there's two types. There's dynamic flexibility or mobility, and then there's static flexibility and mobility. So you need to isolate the individual muscle groups by doing hamstrings and quad and upper body exercise, stretching. But you also have to do dynamic mobility exercises too, with leg swings and arm swings and cars, their pails and rails and things of that nature, to increase that range of motion dynamically while also increasing their strength within those extreme ranges of movement. But yes, to answer your question, I hope flexibility is of the utmost importance for any competitive athlete.
Now you slipped in John Curtis High School, and now I know most of our folks here that find their way to watching us, that's going to go right over their heads. They heard LSU, they know the purple and gold, but when we talk about John Curtis High School, and again, having lived in that area in River Ridge for about 6 years, they're a what I would call a national powerhouse high school. Now, notice I didn't say all sports or football. Their collective, they are empowering students to become better in every facet of their world. And then you went from that type of environment to LSU, which one could argue is one of the top 5 schools year in and year out, up and down the athletic department, as far as the conference they compete in, the championships they compete for. How now, as you venture into the Moffett Method, is it what you learned from John Curtis High School and then LSU? I say this because now, as an owner of your own ship, or you're navigating your own ship, you have so much to offer, not just individuals, but high schools, youth programs, college athletes, college programs. And I want parents and student athletes to understand this is priceless. You cannot find these types of strength-minded coaches just by going to your local YMCA. So talk about what it is, or why it is you started the Moffett Method, and how folks can find you directly.
Yes, sir. So when well, first of all, let me say something about Coach Curtis. So, I played collegiate football, and I was, the year was 1987 when I first met, JT through a phone call, but I was trying, all I wanted to do was to be a strength coach. There was nothing else. My dad wanted me to be an engineer. My mom wanted me to be a veterinarian. And all I truly wanted to do was to be a coach. I had great mentors growing up. I had my junior high school football coach, my high school football coach, my high school wrestling coach were real big into physical fitness and training. Back then, I'm calling it physical fitness. It wasn't weightlifting. And then I went to college. My collegiate strength coach was just amazing. He made me want to be a strength coach. And so I couldn't get a job, man. I graduated in 1986. I spent an entire year trying to get a high school strength and conditioning job in Nashville and the surrounding area. Couldn't get one, man. And back then, the universities, if they had a strength coach, he was a former football coach that they had demoted to be the strength coach, or they had one guy that had played football there that was good in the weight rooms, and there just wasn't a lot of jobs going around. So I had a college teammate and roommate that was a John Curtis alum who had gone back to work for JT. And for those that are listening, JT, I think, he's won over 615 football games. I think they've won 26 or 27 state football championships. He was the head coach of the Louisiana All-Star game 11 times. He's 11-0 in the state All-Star game. They've won 9 state championships in baseball. They've won them in boys basketball, girls basketball, cross country, track and field, 10 state championships in softball. 10 state championships in track and field, volleyball, wrestling, you name it. And the school is all about winning. So Manny, my roommate, was coaching there his first year, and their strength coach. So JT, in fact, I was the third strength coach. I finally got the job in August of 1988, and I was the third strength coach that they had at this high school. I think the first year they had a strength coach was like 1972 or 1973. A fellow by the name of Doug Hamley was the first ever John Curtis strength coach. So I took the job, didn't know but one person in the city of New Orleans. I had $135 to my name. I was actually working at a state park at the time, living in a tent. And I packed my car up and I moved to New Orleans, and it was the greatest experience. He taught me everything about training, and he fed this love and passion that I had for the weight room. So let me get back to the reason why I did this. So that's all I ever thought about. My mom used to tell me, you know, when I was in high school, if I spent as much time doing my math homework as I did writing programs for all the kids in the neighborhood, I'd make straight A's. And that's all I ever wanted to do, infatuated with it. And so, you know, I had a wonderful career. I coached at Curtis for 6 years. We lost 4 football games in 6 years. We lost 1 regular season game, 1 quarterfinal game, 2 semifinal games, and we won 3 state championships. And then I met Philip Fulmer. He was at our school recruiting, and Coach Fulmer gave me my first collegiate strength coaching job. I left there, went to the University of Miami, worked for Butch Davis. And when Coach Saban got the job here, he hired me. And so after about a week on the job, he called me in his office and he said, you know, he said, I thought I could have done better. He said, I really hired you because I couldn't get anyone else to take the job because they all thought I was a butthole. But he said, you know, strength and conditioning is something that goes all the way to the marrow of your bones. And he was true. It was something that I just couldn't turn that switch off, you know, in 2021. And so I wasn't one to sit on the sidelines ever. And so I you know, when I got let go at LSU, I was faced with the reality that I had to find. Well, first of all, I realized that I was addicted. I was an addict, and I was addicted to the weight room. The clanging of the weights, the loud music, watching kids, grown men, grown women from all sports. It didn't matter. Golf, tennis, gymnastics, volleyball, watching those young men and young women do things for me that they didn't know that they could do was the most amazing experience of my life, except for the birth of my 3 boys and getting married. And so we started, when I say we, I teamed up with a couple of people that had better computer skills than myself. We teamed up and created a business that we call the Moffett Method. And we took my 30 some odd years of programs and experience, and we put it into a digital format that we distribute via an app. We use a third-party product. It's called Team Builder. They have over 150,000 clients worldwide. They represent teams in every professional organization because we knew, you know, it costs $1 million to develop an app nowadays. And they've already done the work, and we couldn't have done a better job. So our program is distributed through the app Team Builder, and it's a free app. You download the free app. You sign up with the Moffett Method, and we give you login credentials. And so everywhere my phone goes, the Moffett Method goes with me. It's available on your cell phone, a tablet, laptop, desktop. There are printable versions of the workout. So what we do, first of all, our goal is long-term physical adaptation. We're not a overnight. We can't work miracles. This is a long-term developmental process. It takes years and years and years. Our goal is to start with young men and young women in the developmental ages, in elementary, junior high, high school, and take them all the way through their collegiate and hopefully professional careers. So our program is individualized. So we have individualized programs. This week has been a great week for us in softball. We've signed up probably 4 or 5. Today's Thursday. I think we're at 4 young softball women. We've signed up a baseball organization this week. We've signed up many individuals. We program for schools. We do entire athletic departments and even school boards, whether it is a group of 4 or 5 schools and sport organizations, you name it. And so what we do, we have an onboarding process, a questionnaire. It's important to know how many days a week you're going to train, how long you're going to train, or how much time you have available to train. We talk about your goals. We talk about obstacles that may come up. We talk about facilities, and then we sit down and we design an individualized, personalized program for that sport organization, or that individual. And we signed up a 42-year-old U.S. serviceman this week. So, we train everyone, weekend warriors, moms, dads, young men, young women, you name it. And that's where this project, and I'm going to call it a project, because we have our podcast too, the Moffett Method podcast. But this project allows me to continue to stay involved and still be an influence in young men, young women, and adult professional and amateur athletes. And you can tell by my enthusiasm, I'm pretty fired up about it, but it's just a blessing to be able to touch so many people now that I'm not, I don't have the constraints put on me by working for a particular university or high school or, collegiate team. I'm able to coach as many people as I like.
Well, I think what I want to leave parents and student athletes with, this is an elite mentor, not just a strength coach. This is a life mentor. Coach Tommy is someone, as a parent, as a coach, as a former student athlete, that takes decades of experience and accolades, and now can share that, as you heard, both with student athletes as well as adults in all walks of life. So we're going to have down below, we're going to have all the contact information for Coach Tommy. We're going to the Moffett Method .fit, and we're going to have all that contact information. How do you like people to interact with you on social media? Are you an email guy, Coach?
Yeah.
How do you want to contact?
Yeah, so I get lots of DMs. So they can, so my Twitter and Instagram account is simply Tommy Moffitt, at Tommy Moffitt. I kind of got off of Facebook. I still use Facebook Messenger, but I'm not too visible on Facebook anymore. But Instagram and Twitter, again, that's Tommy Moffitt, at Tommy Moffitt. You can email me at info@themoffatmethod.fit. So if you email me info@themoffatmethod.fit, I will get that. And then, of course, you can go to our website. We have a contact us form. We have someone there. We have one of those little chat boxes. You can chat with a member of our team on the website. We're actually redoing the website right now. The old version is still up, but we're making changes to the website right now. We're updating it and all of our information, but it's easy to get in touch with me at at the email address info@themoffatmethod.fit. Take a look at our website, the Method.fit, and listen to the podcast for coaches, whether you're a high school or collegiate coach. Feel free to go on there. It's chock full because so this process has to do with educating coaches. Our goal isn't to replace anyone. Every school that we represent, we assign a remote coach to that program. On the app, we have 356 instructional videos that the coach can use. All right, here's something else too. Every morning when you wake up, you have a 5 a.m. email reminder from the Moffett Method reminding you what your program is today. We send that out to every athlete, every coach, every equipment manager, every athletic trainer that falls underneath your umbrella. And then that program is on your tablet or your phone. And this process is a teaching process. Like you said, it's a mentoring process. And through the podcast, we are able to offer continuing education to those athletes, to the parents, and to the coaches that are involved in our program, or anyone that just wants to listen.
Well, I want to say thank you. This has been an absolute gem. And this is something that I think parents are going to refer back to. Again, I want to let everybody know all of the contact information that Coach Tommy just shared with us. I'm going to put down below. Make sure all of that is available. Feel free to send an email or a direct message out to Coach. He'll respond, or somebody from the Moffett Method will respond. Tom, I can't say thank you enough. Please say hello and happy holidays to Jill, Brady, Aaron, and Clay. Did it backwards.
I will.
And I wish nothing but the best. And if you're a baseball strength trainer out there, you're a college trainer in baseball, do yourself a favor. Sign your program up for the Moffett Method. It will pay dividends for years, not only with your baseball program, with your entire athletic staff, but you as a baseball trainer can kind of get a head start for your program. Tommy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Walter,
for joining us tonight. I want to say thank you to Coach Moffitt. Make sure you as a parent are well-informed and well-educated. Join us every Thursday for the Coach's Corner. Next week, Coach Serrano will be back with us from Johnson University. Until then, enjoy